Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The novel begins with Guy Montag, a fireman from a futuristic society in which he and his co-workers cause fires instead of extinguishing them. Books are forbidden. They are burned as soon as they are discovered, and Montag feels no charge of conscience regarding his responsibility. But the question is, why are books forbidden? That question will be resolved during the explanation.
However, his life changes when he meets Clarice McLellan, a bohemian 17-year-old girl who happens to be his neighbor. She is very talkative. She introduces him into the world of nature and convinces him not to be anyone's puppet.
After their first meeting, Montag returns home and finds his wife lying in bed with an overdose of sleeping pills. He asks for help, but instead of doctors, plumbers come. They tell him that this type of incidents happen all the time, and they proceed to do a stomach wash. The next morning, his wife, Mildred, doesn't remember nothing and is happy as always.
Then, the more Montag talks with Clarice, the more dissatisfied Montag feels with his life. He begins to wonder if the books aren't as bad as they say, and he even steals one from a house that he burns until it is reduced to ashes. Meanwhile, Clarice disappears. He thinks she is probably dead, and her boss, Captain Batty, begins to suspect.
He lectures him about the danger that books represent and explains the origin of his profession. Far from feeling rejuvenated, Montag feels more rebellious than ever. He spends the afternoon with his wife, reading a secret stash of books that he has been stalking, and concludes that he needs a teacher. Then he gets a Bible and tries to memorize some part.
In the end, he decides to ask for help from a former teacher named Faber, whom he meets one day in the park. At first, Faber is reluctant to accept his proposal, but finally agrees to work with Montag against the firefighters. Faber provides him with a two-way radio headset and sends him on an adventure. That same night, Montag loses his temper and reads aloud a poem forbidden to his wife's friends. It didn't turn out to be a great idea.
That night, at the fire station, Batty provokes Montag by quoting contradictory passages from the same books. He tries to show that literature is confusing and problematic. Then, he takes Montag where there is a fire alarm, in Montag's own house. The call came from his wife, who flees from the scene before they arrive.
Montag fulfills the orders and sets fire to his own house, then burns Betty alive along with the chilling mechanical hound they send after him. Turned into a fugitive, Montag goes to Faber's house, where he watches his own chase on television. Both plan to meet later in a safer place, since the city is now a forbidden zone for them.
Montag flees to the river that is in the city limits, and in his place dies an unsuspecting pedestrian chosen at random. The authorities needed a happy end to the persecution they were broadcasting on television. Montag bows in the river and reflects on life for approximately 4 paragraphs before encountering a series of individuals in the forest who turn out to be former professors, deadheads and other intellectuals.
The boss Granger explains the situation. Since the books are forbidden, each one has memorized a text. Montag wants to collaborate with the parts of the Bible that he tried to memorize before, but his head is still spinning. Then, the city is bombarded by an enemy country. Everyone dies, except Montag and these forest people interested in books. They decide to rebuild society among all, and Montag recalls a very relevant passage from the book of Ecclesiastes about a time to sow, a time to harvest, and the tree of life.
Historically, Ray Bradbury considered himself to be an author of moral works. Still, he didn't want to turn into a preacher, he only wished to show what one shouldn't do. Bradbury had been horrified when he learned that in the 1930s, Nazis burned books in Germany, and that and the impact of technology had on people were some of the main influences for him to write Fahrenheit.
The book seeks to represent the average post-World War II man with some aspects of existentialism and futurism, when the need for easy and happiness first was born. It also wants to empathize the fact that the work was becoming one of the most important aspects of our lives. In the book, this is represented as a distraction from what was really happening around us.
It's important to understand the ideas of futurism in order to better understand the novel. We can mostly see it when the books are burned. Why? Because burning them is the way in which people of the town reject the past. The books show that people wanted a future with only technology and non-thinking people. It is important to understand that many of the technological gadgets present in the novel did not even exist when the book was written, since many of the modern elements predicted by Bradbury are commonplace today, like for example the giant televisions and cell phones.
The book criticized both the communist regime and the capitalist regime. In communist, is seen by the control and forced happiness. In addition to that, only happiness arises from what they give to you and not your knowledge. Capitalist denotes the search for the new technologies, to have more and better things to improve your quality of life, giving importance only to the material. Essential elements of the story are radio and television, and these two are criticized as the only thing they do is to spread the message of the authorities and indoctrinate the citizens, which causes them to be empathic people without personality, conformist, and ignorant. In conclusion, not everything that is legal is real. Not everything that the government tells us is correct. For example, slavery was real in some epochs, but not okay. It is the same with the books. In one time, burning books was legal but not right. Realize that now we are becoming really individualist and we are really empathizing our way of thinking and acting. Maybe it's a consequence of technology, but the books help us to change our point of view.